Hey everybody, this is Jesse P. Gilmore, Agency Transformation Coach and founder of Niche in Control, author of the Agency Owner's Guide to Freedom, and the creator of Leverage for Growth. I'm the host of the Leverage for Growth podcast, and I know that in order for you to scale your agency successfully, there are multiple shifts that need to happen within your mindset, skill set, and leadership style. I am on a mission to interview marketing and PR agency owners on their journey to 6, 7, and 8 figures and leverage the lessons from their journey to save you time, energy, and money to get your agency to the next level. If you find value in these episodes, watch the case study video to learn more about Leverage for Growth and how we successfully scale agencies at nicheincontrol.com/case study. That is nicheincontrol.com/case study. You are now listening to Leverage for Growth. Hey everybody, this is Jesse P. Gilmore, founder of Niche in Control and creator of Leverage for Growth. Welcome to the Agency Leverage Edition. Today I am here with Dr. William Attaway, leadership coach, author, and founder of Catalytic Leadership, where he helps agency owners and entrepreneurs scale intentionally by mastering the inner game of leadership, building productivity systems, and leading with purpose. Thanks for coming to our show today.
Jesse, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Awesome. Can you tell us what kind of inspired Catalytic Leadership?
It really goes back to my story. I started in corporate, and when I began to lead other people and lead teams, I realized there was not a lot of great material to help me develop and grow, much less the people that I'm trying to raise up and develop and grow into leaders themselves. And so I started coaching leaders and teams almost 30 years ago now. That seems hard to believe. It's amazing how quickly that moves. But as I began to do this in a lot of different contexts, first in corporate and business settings, then in nonprofit and church settings, and then my own practice, I was like, this is something that there's a real need for. People start a business because they're good at something, but hiring people and leading yourself, these are skills that most people don't have intuitively. How can I help? And that's why we started it.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it amazing? 30 years. Congratulations on 30 years. That's crazy.
My goodness, it flies.
Well, my first question, I guess, you had talked about how leadership from corporate and then nonprofit and church, how did that experience with leadership kind of impact your approach to coaching?
Coaching is such an incredible profession because what I get to do is I get to work with people where they are and help them move toward where they want to be. And I start with the raw material, right? And so often people have the answers already to the questions that they're asking. They're just not asking the right questions. And so what I get to do is I get to come alongside them and help them see what they just can't see. It's really hard to see the whole picture when you're in the frame. You need somebody on the outside who's going to ask you those questions that maybe nobody else in your world is asking you so that you can see those things, so you can overcome your blind spots. Who do you talk to when you have no one else in your world that understands what you do? Entrepreneurs are special. I'm a third generation entrepreneur. I watched my grandfather and my dad do this, and they didn't have somebody who came alongside them to help them to see what they couldn't see. One wildly successful, one not so much. What was the difference? It was the people around them. And so now what I get to do is come alongside, ask those questions, help people to overcome what's in the way, the obstacles in the way, which most often are between their ears, and then get into the level of success that they know they're capable of.
Mm-hmm. I love it. The passion for coaching is obviously something that we share deeply.
Absolutely.
I guess the question about how did this transition into your focus on agency owners? And I know from a previous conversation there is a tie there based around generation, but can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's funny. I started working with some people in the agency space quite a few years ago now, and really found a resonance there. And I wasn't sure exactly why until I really started to do some deeper work myself. And you would think this is so obvious and self-evident, but it really took me some time because you can't see the whole picture when you're in it. That goes for me too. My dad started a traditional advertising agency back in the 70s, and he ran it for 45 years. It's traditional media. Digital didn't exist, of course, in those days. So billboards and radio and TV and newspapers, etc. And I watched him build and grow an agency from nothing, just an idea, build and grow, create jobs. That's what entrepreneurs do, creating jobs for other people, building a team. But he couldn't get out of his own way. And the difficulty over time was that he became the lid on the business's growth. And he would grow to a certain point and then just beyond it, and then it would drop back and then grow and it would grow and then drop back and grow and drop back because he became the lid. He didn't have somebody alongside of him. He didn't have a trusted thinking partner, if you will, that he could lean into. And it really did not occur to me. It's so crazy. And all these decades, it didn't occur to me that what I was doing was stepping in with other entrepreneurs and business owners and business leaders. And then specifically in the agency space, it did not occur to me that what I was doing on a subconscious level was becoming for them what my dad never had.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is kind of crazy how that happens. And there's so much subconscious parts of our journey, especially as entrepreneurs, that sometimes it just takes either a third party or a lot of introspection to kind of figure out, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? And why do I feel like I'm drawn to it, like in a really intense, like purpose? And that's huge. And that kind of leads towards, I guess, the question of why is it so hard for people to lead themselves? And like, even though it's like the most important part of scaling is actually to develop yourself. I guess in your experience, why does that seem so hard for people?
I think you're the hardest person you're ever going to lead. It's so easy to point a finger and say, oh, if I had better team members, oh, if they just worked harder, oh, if they just do what I told them to do, oh, if we had better systems, oh, if we had better clients. I mean, you can point the fingers all day long, but the reality is, in my experience, most often the problem comes with the leader and how they're leading themselves. Most leaders, most business owners, most agency owners are firefighters. They are moving from fire to fire to fire to fire. Oh, it's time to call it a day. Go to bed, get up, rinse and repeat. Do the same thing again. And this is how they're leading. And people follow. Your team follows how you lead, and they follow in what you lead. So what's going on is because of how they're leading themselves, this is now influencing not just them, but it's influencing their team, which is touching every one of their clients. Okay. Nobody likes to be in a fire. That's not anybody's dream. Okay. And so when you create an environment where the firefighter is just doing this all day long, you're creating an environment where you're going to have high churn. You're creating an environment with low retention. You're creating an environment that is going to cap and severely hamstring the results that you're able to get with fulfillment, all because of how the leader is leading themselves. Now, why do they do that? Well, there's a lot of reasons for this. One is what I call the cape syndrome, right? And this is that you think there's a cape hanging in your closet, and you think if you strap it on, you can swoop in and save the day, right? You like putting out fires because it gives you a dopamine hit. Right? Oh, solved another problem. Oh, yeah. You're the hero. That's great. If you have a cape hanging in your closet, let's talk. Most of us don't. And yet, when you operate that way, you create systems. You create systems that are dependent on you, where you are at the center of the spider web, where everything's dependent on you swooping in and saving the day. Well, that doesn't scale, and you're never going to be able to sell it because you can't sell yourself. Okay. So you got to ask yourself, what is it that you're trying to build? What do you want to build? What's the system you want to live in? So much of this goes back to how you're leading yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The moment you said the systems piece, I was like, it's like the two different models. You got the centralization model, which is all based around the founder. And then you have the decentralized business model, which is based around assets and systems and people. And 100%. I know that people that are watching this or listening to this are either in two different buckets. You have the people that haven't built the systems yet, and everything is based around them and their skills. And so they're like, I can't even think about leadership at this point in time with leading others because I don't really have the systems in place. For those, obviously, you got to lead yourself and build the systems. And then you have the other piece, which is based around the people that have teams, and maybe they just don't really know, like they don't know where to start, And so I guess what would you say to either one of those groups, whichever kind of comes natural? Like, what is a place to start with that?
Where I start with a client when they're in these spots, if they don't have systems yet, that's critical. If you want to build something that's healthy and sustainable for you and for your team and for your clients, you have to have systems. That's an absolute non-negotiable. It's not as complicated as it seems. It's not as intimidating as it seems. You start where you are, not where you think you should be, and not where you wish you were. You start where you are, and you build the systems one at a time, right? What is it that you're doing that somebody else can do? That's where we start. And we start with that list. What are the things you're doing that no one else can do, that only you can do? That's a separate list. We're going to build that out. My goal is to have you working on that list, right? Right now, you got all of it. We're going to start to really focus. And by building systems, you're able to delegate. And by delegating, you're able to then breathe because you have margin. Margin is where creativity lives. Creativity is how leaders solve problems. If you feel like, I don't have any space, I don't have any creativity, it's because you don't have any margin. So that's where I start. I'll start with a client. We'll start with those two lists. We're going to build those two things out. And then we're going to say, okay, one at a time, let's build a system so that this then becomes delegatable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. For our clients, one of the things that we do to set up for that as well is a time log. It's like the least sexy part of business is just log your time for you doing 7 days every half an hour, And from there, one of the greatest things that you can do is we have a method of eliminate, automate, delegate, and then time block.
Yes,
and so there's certain things that you're doing right now that you don't actually even have to do. All right. Yes. And so if we can eliminate those, and then automation works really well for things that are like predictable or like data transfers or, things that are just repeatable. You can automate that. And the things that are left, looking at what you're talking about, where is something that I'm doing right now, somebody else can do that and be able to give that to them. And then whatever's left over, then you start time blocking. That one setup gives it so where you're talking about margin and space between the tasks and the people. That one thing works pretty well.
Do you find people are really surprised when they do that exercise and they look at the results and they see where they're actually spending their time?
Yeah. And one of the funniest things is that a lot of it's the subconscious part, not necessarily based around the purpose and stuff like that, but it's like the subconscious look. And it's funny because they'll start going through it and like 3 days in, they're like, I know exactly what the issue is. And I'm like, keep going for 7 days, but, and then other times like they start doing it and then they have to look back on the entire thing and they're like, holy crap, my sleep patterns are all over the place. I'm waking up in the middle of the night thinking that I need to do, I forgot something and, have to write it down or whatever the issue is. And in a very short period of time, you can take things that used to take a super long time and be able to start narrowing it down so you have that space. I think that time log is like one of the things that I would just add to what you talked about, but I support everything you're saying.
It's a fantastic exercise. I love that a lot. I'm so glad you do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that was really interesting, and I'm kind of going on a riff here. One of the conversations that I had with one of our mastermind clients recently was, he kept on taking things over. Like it's just over and over and over. He's like, oh, I'm just jumping in, like the cape that you're talking about.
Ooh, the cape. Oh,
yeah. And I told him, I was like, the future version of yourself is tapping you on the shoulder. That's the visionary. But right now, that doer version of you needs to die. And he's like, that's what? Right. And I'm like, it just needs to die. Like
here, just hold this.
And I think one of the most interesting things, and I want to talk a little bit about this transformation that agency owners go through between the 6 and 7 figures. I know that you work in other masterminds and talk about leadership in this, and maybe you've seen this before, and we'll kind of see where the conversation goes with it. But what got you here won't get you there. I think it's pretty obvious. And what gets you to 6 figures is doing everything. And you can't really step into visionary leadership if you only have yourself, right? Aside from leading yourself. And naturally what happens is you go from the doer or the subject matter expert, and eventually you need to transition into a trainer. And the only way that you actually move into the trainer role is you have to have the systems. Otherwise, people are just following you around and it doesn't do anything,
That's right.
Then from the trainer, eventually you get trained enough people, then you start managing them, right?
Yeah.
And then from the management piece, you have to build enough management systems in order for you to move into leadership. And when you move into leadership, eventually you're leading the managers, but you're not really into visionary until you have a leadership team. So I think it's like this 5-stage process of going from a doer to a trainer to a manager to a leader to a visionary.
Yeah.
And what do you think about that model? I mean, that's just something I've seen working with 90 some agency owners, but what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree completely. I think I can see every one of those stages. I was talking with somebody yesterday and they just crossed the 7-figure mark, right? So they've been building and working very hard systems, exactly what you're describing, right? Training other people, right? Slowly building them up, the systems. All right, now developing leaders. All right, now putting together a leadership team. And shockingly, as they have built all those things, the company has continued to scale and grow. It's amazing how that happens. And as they do that, they're able to take their hands off and they're able to, in theory, do less, right? But accomplish far more. And the way I often describe this, Jesse, is you have to move from being an individual contributor, right, into being a CEO, right? And what that means is that your job is no longer about getting things done. Your job is about getting things done through other people. You are investing in your leaders, your leadership team. Your leadership team is then investing as it goes down into the organization until everybody is touched, right? Your job is not to do it anymore. And that is the turn that I find most entrepreneurs have trouble with. Most people will not make that turn because they find, again, the dopamine hit, the cape. Swoop in, the doing. They will not make the turn because they don't want to give that up. And when I have this conversation, the way I frame it is I say, here's the thing. If you want to build a lifestyle business where this is all about you, you want to build something where you're doing, that's fine. It's your business. You get to decide. As you wrote about in your book, you have agency, right? You get to choose. But if you want to scale, and if you want to build this thing into something that becomes a sellable asset, this isn't going to get you there, right? Because what you're doing is everything is still touching you, and you got to get out of that.
Mm-hmm. Man, I feel like we should have coffee and dinner and hang out because we're like literally in the same zone here. Because I mean, I think one of the interesting things is that transition from what we talked about, the individual contributor to the CEO, there are so many different skills that are different from what gets you into from freelancer into agency, and the skills that need to be developed are just, they're kind of like the transferable type of business skills. And I think that sometimes it takes that mindset shift or reframe of how am I contributing to the agency and what is the best value that I can give to the agency, because that role and that value switches, and it's not always about the dopamine hit like you were talking about. And I think that one of the greatest things that can happen is that mindset shift, because if you can feel more fulfilled by somebody else doing it, and Dan Martell in his book, he has this saying 80% done by somebody else is 100% awesome. That one,
that's
right. I was like, oh, that's such a good one. It's so good. But that one statement got me to think about kind of the mindset shifts that everybody has to have as they kind of transition. And a lot of our role is most likely just working more on the mindset portion than it is about tactics and all that kind of stuff. I think it has way more to do with like, how are you viewing the business and how are you viewing value to your team and to yourself and to your clients. And I think that shifts and evolves over time.
Absolutely. And I think you have to be honest with yourself. What do you want to build? What is the business you want to build? What is the life you want to live? You get to choose. You get to choose that, right? And whatever you choose, great. Just be consistent. Have the integrity to be consistent and operate in accordance with what you say you want to build. Don't say you want to build something that scales and is sellable, but say, I have to touch everything. It's not going to work, right? You have to have the integrity to have consistency. A friend of mine says consistency is the mother of momentum. Everybody wants momentum. Consistency is how you get there.
It reminds me of, have you ever heard of the CQ model?
No, I don't think I have.
It's kind of like a step-by-step. If I had like a visual, it'd just basically be like steps. But I was always taught it when I was learning about systems and process in corporate. And they say that consistency is the foundational step. Everybody wants like volume and so forth. You figure out consistency. What naturally starts happening is that you focus on quality. The quality of the consistency. So it's like a frame. From the quality, what happens is that when you're consistent and you have quality, it leads towards confidence. When you have confidence in whatever you're doing, then it leads towards quantity. And anytime that someone's having an issue with like volume, focus on consistency. If you're having an issue with confidence, focus on quality, right? It just gives a frame to understand when you're building something, whether it's habits or systems or standards or whatever it is, you have a step-by-step process to get there.
Oh, I love that. Oh, it's brilliant. Consistency, quality. I'm going to check that out. Thank you. That's brilliant. Yeah. You got me thinking now.
I see all the books in the back and I'm like, yes, I taught Dr. William Attaway something new. I'm like, heck yeah, dude.
One of the things that I talk about with clients is the importance of a teachable spirit. One of the commitments that I make every morning is I want to be the most teachable person in every room I walk into, in every conversation I'm in, because I believe you can learn from anybody. Now, sometimes you learn what not to do. Great. That's still valuable. But sometimes if you're receptive, you can pick up all kinds of stuff like this. Did I come into this expecting to learn about CQ today? I did not. But I'm going to be thinking about that for the rest of the day. Thanks to Jesse. Thank you.
Boom. If that's my biggest impact is like the CQ model in your world.
That's so good, man. That's so good. I love it.
Cool, man. Well, it's been a good talk, man. What if there's an agency owner that's listening to this and they want to know either more about you or read your book or, what's the best way of getting in contact with you?
You can go to our website, catalyticleadership.net, and see all the different things that we do. I do one-on-one coaching, where I work with teams and different masterminds and companies with offsites and retreats and all manner of things. I speak at a lot of different agency events. And you can always connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active over there, and I would love to connect with your listeners. And if there's a way that I can be of service and assist, I'm always happy to do that.
Awesome. And for anybody that's listening, I will include all of Dr. William Attaway's links, and including his website and then also LinkedIn in the show notes. And William, thank you so much for coming to the show, man. It's been awesome.
Hey, Jesse, thank you for having me. I always love our conversations. This was no exception to that. So good.
Awesome. Agency owners, if you want to transform your agency to sustain and grow without your direct involvement, where you can stop working in the business and start working on the business, where you can free up your time, delegate work more effectively, price and position your services to finally get paid for what you're worth, and have the team run the day-to-day, go to nicheandcontrol.com/case study now to learn more about leverage for growth. And also to book a free strategy session with us. We'll look at your systems, determine exactly what you need to do in order for you to scale this year, and to create a strategic plan so that you can live the life of entrepreneurship you've always dreamed about. Go to nicheandcontrol.com/case study now.